No, my lawyer said I can't be Stevie Nicks. I'm just a generic, non-specific look-alike.
Welcome to the generic, non-specific Stevie Nicks podcast. I am your co-host, Randy.
And I'm Anthony and Randy. There's some people in the boxes today.
We have some special guests here. And before I introduce them, because today we'll be talking about White Winged Doves, a Stevie Nicks poetry anthology. And before we get into that, full disclosure, Anthony's poem, Five Notes, is in this collection on page 51.
That's right.
And he'll be asking some of these questions will be from the perspective of someone who went through the submission process. Today, we have the editors of this particular anthology. Collin Kelly is an award-winning poet, novelist, and editor from Atlanta. His most recent collections is Wonder and Wreckage, New and Selected Poems. Welcome, the late Collin Kelly.
Yes, very late. I apologize. I'm very, very delinquent.
Oh, you are perfectly fine.
Colin, I
Um,
was almost 2 hours late, so you are all good, man.
Good
that's
to
right.
know.
So
Good to
we have
know.
established in this episode who the Order Muppets are and who the Chaos Muppets
No, no,
are for
the
today.
most order Muppet. I'm absolutely not a chaos Muppet.
Joining Colin is Megan Volpert. She is the author or editor of over a dozen books on popular culture, including two Lambda Literary Award finalists and an American Library Association honoree. And I just happen to have a copy of one of her books on my shelf right now from University of Texas Press. Shout out to Gianna Lamort. Please welcome Megan Volpere.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here, both of you. Uh, Before we get into the anthology itself, for anyone who might be new to this podcast, one of the core ideas behind it is that Stevie Nicks brings people together. In fact, our website is literally steviefriends.com. As we prepared for today's conversation, one of the things that jumped out at us in recent interviews and the anthology book launch events was the role that friendship played in creating this. Anthony and I have been best friends for more than 30 years because of Stevie Nicks. Anthony wrote a letter to the Teen Titans comic book back in 1991, comparing Stevie Nicks to Raven. 1,800 miles away in Little West, Texas, 17-year-old gay Randy read that in the green room of a theater, screamed out loud, ran home, and wrote Anthony a letter. Somehow, all these years, we are still best friends. And we noticed that the two of you have been through a similar journey and you have created something out of that. So I wondered if you could talk about how that came about. How did you become friends? How did you come to do this project together?
Yeah, you two are beating us by about 8 years. Colin and I have been friends for 21, 22 years at this point. We met in Austin, Texas. We were both there to perform at the Austin International Poetry Festival, like really in its heyday. And there were a lot of like very performatively oriented poets. There was a lot of slam poetry stuff going on in Austin, and a lot of those people were friends of mine, or Colin was friends with the slam people in Atlanta. So we just ended up at the same stage at the same time and saw each other's work. And he was like, "Hey, do you want some Atlanta gigs maybe?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was living in Baton Rouge at the time, finishing my MFA at Louisiana State. And so the first bookings I ever got in Atlanta were every name and telephone number that Colin put in my hand. And then 8 months later, I moved to Atlanta. As soon as I defended my thesis, I got the heck out of Louisiana and came here.
That's right. Yeah. We were we always tell the story. We got thrown out of a Barnes and Noble together in Austin for whatever reason they decided to put the gay poets at the Barnes and Noble in the little suburb of Austin. And it was a group of us and we were all fairly, the poetry was risque, let's say.
Gay. We were gay.
We were
Yes.
gay and risque, and they stuck the reading in the children's section of the store. And so there we are reading our super gay, super profanity laden poetry. And they threw us out and banned Austin International Poetry Festival from having any more events there.
Oh
So
no.
we we set the bar. But out of that came my friendship with Megan. And I'm so glad she came here because when she got here, what happened when you got here, Megan?
Yeah, the very first gig on the very first night, I met the woman who became ultimately my wife. And so
Oh.
Mindy and I have been together for 21 years, and it is to her house that my Penske truck pulled up after it left Louisiana. And we've been together ever since. And
Oh,
so,
wonderful.
she had friends that were hosting this reading that Colin had set up for me. And so it all just kind of, the stars aligned on that particular night. And
Synchronicity, yeah.
yeah, really changed the trajectory of my whole life. So,
That is amazing. And as a former Barnes and Noble bookseller myself, I love stories like that. You're going to need to tell me which Barnes and Noble that was, so the next time I'm in Austin, I'm going to put up like a little historical marker with you,
Exactly.
and I'm just going to sneak it
I'll
into the
have to look
children's
it up.
section.
It's kind of on the fringe of the city. It was on the edge.
I
Uh,
want to say it was in Barton Springs, but I'm not 100% positive.
yeah, I don't know. I can't remember. If I looked it up, I could find it. I know, but it was, it was a suburban Barnes and Noble. We really didn't have any business being there, with the kind of rating we were giving.
Right.
Everybody there.
I don't know. It sounds like a victory for our culture all the way around.
It was. I mean, it's one of the highlights of my career. So.
So,
Bravo to both of you.
how did you start working on White Winged Doves together? How did that come about?
Um, I did in the UK. My other big diva is Kate Bush. So back in the early aughts, I worked with a co-editor, Kyla Fox, in the UK, and we did a Kate Bush anthology. And that was a fundraiser. It was a limited edition. It was really beautifully done, and Kate Bush picked the charity that all of our money went to. So that was
Cool.
very cool to have that
Yeah.
interaction. And so I was like, one day I should do a Stevie Nicks anthology, and it never, it kind of just didn't happen. And then Madville Publishing, who published White Winged Doves, they published another anthology I co-edited with Karen Head called Mother Mary Comes to Me, a pop culture poetry collection anthology. And the editor, Kim Davis, said that they were planning to do like a series of diva anthologies. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Well, this seems like the perfect time to pitch a Stevie Nicks anthology. And I did. And without hesitation, she took it. And Megan was the first person I thought of because she's such a huge Tom Petty fan. And Stevie is, a quasi member, a quasi member,
Honorary heartbreaker.
an honorary heartbreaker. And so I was like, nobody better could be a perfect foil for putting this anthology together than Megan.
Cool.
That is awesome.
Anything to add to that, Megan? Before we
No, not a thing.
okay.
No notes, 10
So
10, no
okay, so
notes.
No, no.
so
Yes.
I'll go. So Megan, your introduction fascinated me because of course it starts from a very different place than most Stevie fans opening an anthology would expect, right? You
Hmm.
you began by listing reasons someone might dislike Stevie. By like the
Yeah. I mean,
second
she knows about
paragraph,
herself. She knows about herself.
sure. By the second paragraph, I was like, what did Stevie Nicks do to Megan? Key her car, kill her puppy and childhood things. So, but seriously, what led you to decide to open like a celebratory anthology by focusing on like the contradictions and what you're saying, rather than strengths?
Well, I
I'm
love a shock
curious.
jock moment, and then the introduction was a really good place to put that because I wanted to situate, Colin and I are two different generations of involvement with Stevie. I was like 3 years old at the time when Colin went to his first Stevie Nicks show, and he is a super fan, a
Yeah.
first generation super fan. He was listening to her music contemporaneously with when it came out, and I am not. I was born in 1981. I'm 44. And so I heard Stevie on my mom's cassettes in the kitchen when I was a kid. I got, second wave Stevie. My mom was first wave. And so understanding fandom of Stevie in a second wave perspective versus a first wave perspective, I think is really different. And, the musicians I loved are like Alanis Morissette, who I've also written a book about. And so it's not that I dislike Stevie at all. It's
I'm
just,
sorry. I hope I didn't make you feel awkward.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Okay.
Seldom do I feel awkward, but I
Oh,
appreciate you,
good.
Anthony.
Good.
And so it's not that I really dislike her, although I do sort of like attempt to give that impression for the value, I think, of articulating the polarities of fandom. Like I can deeply study what she does and view a lot of it as campy or be critical towards it, but that's a form of love. But it's very different than the like straight up homage that I knew Collin was going to be interested in. And so I thought that I could bring some grounding and some more balanced perspective.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I knew Megan was not a Stevie super fan. She's a Tom
Sure.
Petty. I don't know if you're a super fan of Tom Petty, but you're
Oh
up
yeah.
there. So,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
And so I knew that she would bring like a counterbalance to my total fangirling. I would have no objectivity at all. So I needed someone to help
50,
kind
50 poems about shawls and nothing but
of, right,
shawls, you
exactly.
guys. That's what you're
Tambourines and
missing out
shawls.
on.
That's right.
Wait,
And
that's the
twirling.
next question. No, I'm just kidding.
So I mean,
Yeah.
so it was great to get Megan's perspective because as we were reading the submissions, some of the choices that although we were pretty right down the line on what we ultimately chose to include in the anthology, there were some that where I was like, and she was some of mine she was like, and so I mean, but it kind of balanced out.
Well, that actually, before we get to your intro, Colin, I have a couple of things to say. One is a question, but that was a great way to put that, Megan, because in our podcast, we, especially when we first started out, we would we would make fun of Stevie in a very
I still
loving
do.
way.
Yeah.
But we like when we did the Rock a Little episode, when we were going through the Rock a Little episode, I had a paper mache dove, and so we interviewed the dove from the Red Rocks concert. And I mean, it's just like absurdist, that again, that campy stuff. And so thank you for that answer, because that really kind of puts it in perspective for us. But on the flip side of that is Colin, who is a super fan and wrote your introduction from that viewpoint. Did you write it after reading Megan's intro, or did you write it like
I
independently?
think I wrote mine first and then sent it over to you, and you were like, okay, I'm gonna have to write something that kind of like,
I said,
kind
Collin, talk about the anthology, man. In
of
your introduction, it's just a series of anecdotes about how you
right.
have encountered Stevie. Say
That's
something
right.
about our book.
Right. So see, this is why I needed Megan, because I wanted to set up the book that way in my introduction to kind of, show that I had some bona fides, that I was there. I mean, I was 6 years old in the backseat of my parents' car, listening to rumors on the radio, and when listening to Dreams on the radio when Rumors came out in 1977, and my first concert was Fleetwood Mac, and many, 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 many subsequent concerts have been Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac. Um, so I kind of had a feeling that that's where the poets were going to come from, is that the memories of Stevie were going
Hmm.
to be like a main element of this collection, even before I read a single poem. And so I just wanted kind of to place myself there in a place where I knew this is where I just instinctively knew that a lot of the poems were going to be that. And so I think when Megan wrote hers and sent it to me and we kind of attached them together, I was like, it's perfect. It's a perfect counterbalance. It really evens it out, you know, and gives both sides of the coin. It introduces that history and that lore and that love, and then with a more critical eye, to Stevie's, fandom and career and music. And so I just think it was a perfect match.
Well, it was quite the bookend to really ground this anthology and present it in that way. Anthony?
I want to, Randy, there was something you had said when we were talking about preparing. Did you both ever consider like writing one intro together that wasn't like, no, I see Megan going, absolutely not.
No.
Well, I think we had discussed maybe having like a prologue and an epilogue at one
Okay.
point, and then we
Mhm.
were like, that won't work. I mean,
Okay.
because I think I've done anthologies where we've done that before, where there's been an intro and an outro, so to speak. And the outros always, even after I'd done it a couple times, I was like, it just kind of takes the wind out of the sails. The last
Yeah.
word should be one of the poets giving the last word. And so I was glad we did it the way we did it.
Yeah.
Cool.
And a part of that is the order of operations too. Like we had accepted all the poets and we knew that it would be alphabetical. And so we knew what the last poem was and that it was up to the task. Shout out to Gerard Wozak. Yay, end of the alphabet, WXYZ folks. As a Volpert, I see you, I hear you.
Yeah.
And so his poem was a great way to close the collection. And so then when we talked about, like contextual front matter, back matter stuff, there was no doubt in our minds that we did not need stuff at the end because his poem was more than adequate to do the job for us.
Awesome.
And we
Okay.
talked about, were we going to divide this up into sections? Was it going to be thematic somehow by dates or by albums or by eras? And it didn't present itself. It was just such a disparate group of poems and memories, and it just needed to just flow. And so we were just like, we're just going to alphabetize the poets and let the poems flow instead of trying to force it into some kind of section. Um, I would say the majority of anthologies do that. They're partitioned off, sectioned off, and that just didn't present itself here. And I'm ultimately glad it
Yeah.
didn't, because I think you get a
Well,
much more pure anthology, a pure book,
makes
and look,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I will say that on some of the early promo images, I don't know if it was you guys or Madville, they were organized by first name alphabetically, so Anthony was very happy. But then last name
Yeah, I don't
alphabetical.
remember why that happened. I think it was we sent the list to Madville and they just did it that way. We were
It's
like,
all
wait,
good. I'm
it's not
just
going to
being
be that way.
facetious. Yeah, I'm
But
being totally
yeah, but I
facetious.
I think it worked out. I really do.
Same thing.
Everything stands on its own really beautifully.
So we read that you, in one of your pieces coming up to the publication, that you received, I think it was like 200, 300 submissions from different poets, and that I read you evaluated them independently, separately, and then came together. Tell us more about that process. How
Uh,
did you
we
decide what to include?
we read the poets blind, so we had a submittable platform through the
Mhm.
publisher, and everybody dumped their stuff in there, and then we just as soon as we opened the call and there was a single submission in there, we started looking at them. We did not wait until all the submissions were in. We had a point system. So 0 was like, this is not even relevant to the topic of Stevie Nicks. This came from a bot or it is AI
Yeah.
slop. We are rejecting it out of hand. All the way up to 5, meaning like, this is stellar and amazing. We cannot not put this in the book. And so then, he had his spreadsheet, I had my spreadsheet. And once the submissions closed, it took us maybe a week to get through the last minute slackers who turned in everything at 11:59 p.m. on deadline day. And then we just combined our rankings and we simply, for the most part, with like 3 or 4 exceptions, maybe, we just tallied up the points and the ones that had the highest point rank made it into the collection.
Were there were there any poems from either one of you, and you don't have to name them, but were there any that one of you felt very strongly about either including or excluding, and you kind of had to persuade the other? Did you have any of that, or were you pretty simpatico?
We did we had like a more, it wasn't so much that we convinced each other, it was more like we did mutual sacrificing. Like
That's a good way
one
to put it.
poem that I really loved and one poem that I really hated. And I was like, look, dude, I will trade you. If we can put in this poem that I really love that you don't care about at all, in the book, then I'll let you have this poem that I don't care about at all. So we had just a very few of those because, like I said, we really kept it as objective as we could. The
Mathematical. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
The biggest, it wasn't even a disagreement. The longest conversation we had about a submission was Valerie Smith. Valerie Smith submitted a half a dozen poems, and
Right.
every single one of
Oh, yeah.
them was top-notch publishable. And so first we had to debate how many poems from an individual poet could we accept, because the most we had accepted from anybody was two up until that point. And so the idea that we could take six of hers and put it in there seemed nuts. We didn't really want to do that just at a gut check level. Um, and so we had to do a lot of haggling then over how many could we accept and which ones should they be, because we had different opinions about, we had our
Oh, okay.
favorites.
Sure.
Yeah. And I've
Sure.
I'm
told Valerie,
self-censored at two, but my other one that you guys didn't take will be my Silver Spring for the rest of my life. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Carolyn Brooks, it's the piece that he read at Night of a Thousand Stevies. And I told him it was the Silver Springs of this anthology, and I think that's a really high honor. And when you publish the 20th anniversary edition, it'll be, as a
There
bonus
you go.
chapter.
we'll include it as a B
And I'll
side.
stare at Colin like a death stare as I read it.
Yeah, that's right. We'll include it as a B side.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
there
we
you
told
go.
Valerie Smith that she should just do a Stevie chapbook because all
Yeah.
of the poems that she has about Stevie are they are stellar.
I
Uh,
looked her up after the virtual event. I was so impressed. I follow
she's a
her
great
anywhere I
poet. She
can. I'm
really,
trying not to
really
stalk her at her
fine poet.
house. So I hear you.
Yeah, she's a really great poet, and we were just blown away. But there were a couple others that we were also blown away by. I think J.C. Riley and who else? I'm blanking now. Those are the two that come to mind. But yeah, there were two or three poets who submitted work, multiple poems, and we were just like, it's got to be more than one. They're too good not to include. So
Randy, can I go or do you want, or are you
Yeah,
going?
no, go ahead.
I I wonder when you were reading them all, if a poem was clearly from a very personal place, like did that help it or hurt it in your point of view? Like, did is it a liability? Like the one you five notes, the one you guys accepted was literally about the first time I heard Stevie Nicks in a cafeteria at my first year in college in 1981. So I wonder if that stuff, when no one will get it. Did that come through to you when you were reading some of them? Were they too personal?
I think it can go either way. Like, if your feelings are so entrenched that you cannot get to a place of adequate craft with them, then
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to hurt the submission. But if your feelings are adequately expressed through your craft, then hell yeah, that's exactly what we're at. So, like, I mean, I think it really could go either way. It just depends on how, like, what tools that allows you to access or not access when you're writing the thing.
and I mean, I've edited many anthologies at this point in my life and guest edited, and I was a special reader for the Atlanta Review's 25th anniversary, and I just I'm down. I mean, I know that within in the first couple of lines, the first stanza, if the poem is going to work at all. Um, and you occasionally get a poem where you're like, okay, there's something interesting. Let me keep reading, and then it's enough to keep you interested, and then you get to the end and they just knock you out with it, and you're like, okay, a little slow at the beginning, but man, they stuck that landing. And I'm a pretty quick read when it comes to anthologies, I guess, now, because I just kind of know what I think is going to work um in the book. And so it was pretty easy for me. I mean, I knew without looking at Megan what Megan was doing, and just on my own editing, eyeballs. I kind of knew, what was going to work and what wasn't going to work, and it just so happened that Megan and I were pretty much in sync um, along the way.
So, after reading those hundreds of submissions, did you start seeing some recurring life experiences among the contributors? Not necessarily demographics, but like their emotional experiences or their life experiences. Was there a common thread that you noticed?
Somewhat. I mean, there's was definitely a feeling of like, how do I get out? Whatever that means. How do I get out of this marriage? How do I get out of this town? How do I get out of this job? How do I get out of
Interesting.
this tricky situation? And that's not to say that fandom of Stevie Nicks is particularly escapist. I think it's sort of the opposite of that. It's like, how can I become empowered enough? Like, where's my gasoline? Where is the spark that is needed to get forward momentum in my life? I
Right.
definitely think that was a through line.
And I think there was a lot of survival and however you want to look at survival. I mean, there's one poem by Shima Kalbasi in there. She was listening to the poems while she was in a war zone, and Stevie's music got her through that. And so you just see, getting out of a relationship, getting out of a bad home life. It's just about survival. And I think, Stevie, that's one of the through lines of her work is I'm going to survive this. I'm going to get through it. It's going to hurt. And I'm going to get through it. I'm going to write a song about it, So there was a lot of that too, I thought.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It was something I was thinking about. It kind of touches on, and if I correct me if this is wrong, when I was reading and some of the things I think you even said in the virtual poetry event, I I think you've both alluded to being surprised by like the absence of poems about Stevie's romantic life. And as I thought about it, I wondered, it's like, I don't know if it's that surprising. Part of her persona to me has always been this like unapologetic vision of women's empowerment that at the same time never asks someone to like sacrifice the traditional frilly femininity stuff. But what do you think the absence of the romance does reveal about how people connect with Stevie? And Stevie's, again, I see her as a feminist. I always have. And even more so recently, I love that she's getting political. I wish the whole next album would be just political songs.
After like an intense amount of writing and teaching about RuPaul, who, gun to my head, that's my number one diva, you know. Um, After thinking about this in a RuPauline context for a long time, I have to say the biggest asset and accolade for any diva is simply their personality, you know?
Right.
And so what she has done, or who she has done it with, or the particular circumstances of her life are to a large extent wholly irrelevant to people's ability to appreciate just the power that she brings to a situation. And that's true of Rue as
Mhm.
much as it is of Stevie.
And I think that,
I
another thing is that, other than Lindsay Buckingham, her other relationships haven't been as, tabloid fodder. She's
Yeah.
had a lot of relationships. Don Henley might be the other most famous one. Because she got pregnant by him and had an abortion, which she's been
Right.
very open about. Um, but I think that the way the songs arrive. She writes in notebooks, they start as poems, and then she, works with a collaborator on the music. Um, but I just think that she has that ability to take whatever happened in her relationship or her love affair gone wrong and just make it universal. And so that everybody can put themselves in that place. And I think that's why the specific relationships didn't come into play here because the lyrics, the music, it's incredibly, although she's obviously writing about Lindsay and Don and whoever else, you know, it doesn't have the same it's not like, and this and I don't mean this to sound bad, it's not like with Taylor Swift, and I'm a diehard Swiftie. That who all the songs are about, and she's had these very public relationships, and it's very easy to connect all the dots and know who she's writing about. And other than Lindsay and rumors, maybe a few things on Belladonna and Tusk. I mean, Stevie kind of moved on, to other relationships, other great loves of her life. And you just can't pin the songs down to one man. And I think that's great.
agree.
Yeah,
I think
yeah. Go ahead.
I think this is also sliding around under here is a question of form too, because this is a poetry anthology. And so what does poetry lend itself to the consideration of versus if Colin and I had sent out a call for essay submissions in homage to Stevie Nicks, we would have gotten the music journalists, the industry people, the academics that I know, and that is a very different story because, Colin says, well, there's not a lot of tabloid fodder in Stevie's relationships outside of with Lindsay and maybe with Don Henley. But as a music journalist, my instinct is like really to flinch at that and say, no, she almost broke up the Eagles as well. Joe
Yeah.
Walsh, not just Don
True.
Henley.
Right.
And like also, didn't break up the
Jimmy Iovine,
Heartbreakers because
right?
they had more sense, but and Jimmy Iovine, yeah. And
Right.
so there's no shortage of ways for people interested in it from an industry perspective to be like, well, no, there's a pretty fucked up story to be told here.
Yeah.
But from a fan perspective, from a listening perspective,
Hmm.
that doesn't come into play at all.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, and I mean we're living in, if Stevie were, young, still in her prime in her younger days during rumors and all of that, and she was having these relationships, and I mean she'd be on the internet 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You would never stop hearing about it. So
Stevie just unfollowed Tom Henley. Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Oh my God. Could you
So
imagine Stevie with a Twitter account in like
Yeah.
1980? I
Yeah.
yeah,
mean,
Well, I mean, look at what Cher has done with that medium.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I know.
Stevie could have that.
She
Lighthouse,
could.
I feel, Anthony, like you, I feel Lighthouse is really just the tip of a potential iceberg. And I hope she goes that way. I hope she goes
Mhm.
her own fucking way about it, you know?
Right. Even
Me,
Show Them
me
the
too.
Way is one of my favorites. And it's so often I'll discuss the song with another Stevie Nicks fan and they never heard it. And it's so interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but Colin, you're right. Like I can listen to a song and be like, oh, that's the one about Joe Walsh, or oh, that's the one about, Rupert Hine. And but the general public who listens to like Rooms on Fire on the radio, they have no
right.
idea.
They're
And
they're
they,
not
they
gonna
don't have that context.
right. They don't, because it wasn't discussed then. She's
Right.
discussed since.
Right.
Uh, but at the at the time of the release of the album or record, those things just weren't
Right.
those things weren't talked about. And when I interviewed Stevie, I sure as hell didn't ask her about it. So,
I
But
don't
would
want
you
to put
now?
words.
Would
I
you
don't want to
now?
put, oh, go ahead, Good. Sorry.
absolutely not, because
I would.
I just think she's pretty clear in her boundaries about what she's going to talk about and what she's not going to talk about.
Fair.
And you probably would have gotten if you asked, you probably would have gotten at the time, maybe not now. She seems a lot more open to discussing things now, putting
Hmm.
things into context. But I think at the time, she'd have been like, "Bye, click,"
Right.
and
Karen would have ushered you out of the room then.
because I almost got by clicked myself because she
Oh,
wasn't in the mood. So yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, since you brought that up, what do you think Stevie would think of this anthology, if it was presented to her?
Stevie, if you're listening, call us.
That's right. I can say I'm going to vague book this a little bit and just say we do know that a member of her inner circle, I guess you can say, has read the book, and so it's completely possible Stevie's seen the book. Whether she'll say anything about it, it's neither here nor there. It would be great if she did. It would be, it would certainly help the sales. Um, but she probably never will, and I'm okay with that. It's okay.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's different from your Kate Bush experience,
it's
Having,
different because I mean, I've never met Kate Bush and I've never actually spoken to Kate Bush, but I've had email interaction with Kate Bush, which is, very minor email interaction, let me say, very minor. And, even that was a thrill, that she even knew the project existed was a thrill, So if
No.
Stevie knows that exists and she's not calling lawyers or anything, thumbs up, you know.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Colin, it seems like I don't want to put words in your mouth. It, I'm going to summarize. I think what you're telling me, you know, what the anthology is about, if you're to sum it up, resilience and overcoming and finding the way and, doing what you want to do through pain. I'm not doing it well, but is that anywhere near what you think, as a summation, a generalization about the, um, the anthology? And you can explain if that's wrong, but what did you assume it would be? What would be the common theme before you read the poems? And then Megan, I want to hear your point of view as well.
I mean, I did kind of think it was going to be, it would be, it would be love and heartache and resilience and survival. And I kind of thought that's what it would kind of boil itself down to. And it did. And I'm thrilled, because I mean, I think I've been to enough Stevie Nicks concerts and talked to enough Stevie Nicks fans, that I kind of knew, um, what they were going to give to us, and I didn't know how they were going to give it to us and how it would like present itself, but the general thematic of it, I kind of had a sense that what we got was what we were going to get.
Yeah. You, the word resilience, I think, is one of the most overused,
It
makes
is.
me want to throw up in my mouth a little bit. So I don't want to put that word on our book, but this is like the essential witchness that I bring to the perspective of this anthology is, I mean, I just, resilience is a god of many names, and I would like to use other names. Like it's about the magic that you find within yourself to overcome. It's about remembering your own ancestral wisdom. It's about letting yourself sparkle in the face of obstacles, you know? I
Yeah.
want
And
to
it
say those the actiony things, not just resilience, which is like some really like I'm resilient because I sat on my fucking couch during the, pandemic and like I'm still here. So woo me,
For the
There's a
record, my
lot of
definition is what you said. My definition of resilience are the three things you said and some more. So for the record,
Yeah.
yeah.
but I
yeah.
think too it also it just speaks to that. And I mean, this is also it's kind of a cliche now, is that it continues to speak to how music and songs are the soundtrack of our lives,
Yeah.
and how when you find an artist early in your life that you really connect with, uh, that artist remains a through line through your entire life. Kate Bush has, Stevie Nicks has, Laurie Anderson for me. There's just this, there are these like there my poem in the book is called Wayfinder, and they are
Hmm.
wayfinders, these artists. And so I think it speaks to that as well, how music continues to be a uniter, and it helps define who you are.
Love that.
I do too. I think that's great. Um,
Randy, I'm sorry. I just want to tell Colin, my other Stevie Nicks is Yoko Ono. I
Mhm.
doubt I'd be able to find a lot of people to do a book with.
I love
I do
Yoko.
too. I love Yoko. I think she's
Oh,
amazing.
cool. Okay, we'll talk.
we've got three contributors right there.
I mean,
Uh,
I love a lot of I'm a huge Marianne Faithfull fan.
mhm.
I love Yoko, Laurie Anderson. Some of it just a lot of these different voices, speak to me, and it's very, the music is not the same. What Laurie Anderson does and what Stevie Nicks does are
Yeah, right.
large gulf between them, but they still
And
speak to me on an equal level, you know,
yeah, they
essential.
do. They fit different parts of your life and different parts of your personality and different lived experiences. So
Yeah.
I mean, it makes perfect sense because, Stevie may be the thing that I listen to the most, but I will have a share day. I will have a Madonna. I am a gay man. There are many,
Sure.
you know, uh, but help us, Anthony and I, kind of. It's not a debate, but we've been kind of polling people. Taylor Swift has her Swifties, and Grateful Dead has the Deadheads, and we've got the Justin Beliebers. What do you call group of Stevie Nicks
Yeah. Your
fans.
your POV on the definitive collective fan group name. What is
I
Hey,
don't know why we're working really hard to like give a noun to it. That seems a very modern impulse. Like the artists that you're naming are artists that are way well after Stevie. You know what I mean?
It
Like
was
no one
just
talks
Well,
about
Grateful Dead.
Cher's.
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
at Night of a Thousand Stevies. We heard about 4 or 5 different versions that people seem to think that everyone has adopted. So that's what made us
Yeah,
interested.
yeah.
I
We
And
mean,
wanted to be at a horse in the race, and Megan
for
has no
years
I,
I
horse in the race,
heard
I'm hearing.
because she, I
chiffon
mean,
heads and I
I'd
hate it.
heard different games. I mean, back in I think back in the 80s, there may have been a fanzine called the Nightbirds or something like that. So I've heard them
Okay.
call that before, which plays into the lore, of course. And I mean, I kind of generally just call them the Stevies because of Night of a Thousand Stevies, really. I
Yeah,
mean, when I
yeah.
think of the fans, I'm like, oh, all the Stevies are here. So, but I don't think she really she's never
He has it.
cultivated that.
Colin, these people would not be argued away from what they thought it was. So that's
What
why
did
we
they think it
started.
was? I'm very curious.
Shawshankers was one,
What?
right,
Which I
Randy?
love. Yeah,
Never,
Shawshankers.
Right?
Yeah.
never heard.
Chiffon heads was another. I'm trying to think now. But,
Yeah.
someone said Nixers, and I thought,
Yeah.
no, I could say that too fast and then be called, I'm not,
Yeah.
we're,
And then
that
you'd
one's
be
off the list.
escorted
This
out
is
of
one.
Barnes and Noble.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've never heard either of those, and
Interesting. Okay.
so I think it's
Megan, I'm with you. That's
I think send me your hate mail, people, but I think Shawshankers is a idiotic pun. The Shawshank Redemption is so far after the
I,
birth of Stevie's career that it makes no sense to attempt to combine the two. Like we're in prison, but we have shawls, or what are you getting
well,
at?
that'll
I
happen if
don't
I
I
go
I'm
to
don't
I'm
jail.
writing that
understand.
movie right now in my head.
Cool, then it'll be something, but
Shawshank
right now
Redemption.
it's
Yeah, go
nothing.
ahead.
But I
No,
like
I
both
think,
Colin's
I
answers.
think,
I like Nightbird and I like Stevie's. Those. I mean, Nightbird's is particularly badass. That sounds like a cool girls' motorcycle gang.
but Megan, I
Like
don't know. I
extras
think you're
from Grease
saying,
or
I'm
something.
sorry.
But I mean, it's a coven, right? It's just a coven.
Yeah, that's it.
There you go. And that's what I don't think, Mariah Carey, for example, I think she coined the lambs or whatever it is. Stevie would think that was to be such a waste of her time. She would never do
Yeah.
it. To your point, Megan. Yeah. So,
Well,
okay.
And so,
yeah.
but I'm really because I mean, Stevie's supposed to have a new album out. Apparently, a number of people have heard it already,
Yes.
and have said it's like one of the greatest things she's ever done.
Can't
From their
wait.
lips to our ears. And then there's still the question about whether she'll appear in the new Coven,
Oh
American Horror
yeah.
Story this
Yeah.
fall. One of the rumors that I heard was that the album was going to come out in this spring, and they delayed it so it would coincide with maybe an appearance in Coven. That is a total rumor, and there's not necessarily any truth to it. It's the things that you hear that the album was definitely slightly delayed for some reason. Um, but I mean, Stevie is, still doing shows.
Hmm.
There's likely going to be a huge tour to accompany this new album. There's the persistent, and this is what, Stevie and Lindsay have done this by their collaborative social media posts. And then Lindsay announcing that they're on speaking terms again, that something is going to happen with them. I would guess he's going to be on her album, playing guitar, singing backing vocals or something. There's something like Beyonce cleared her entire Instagram
Yeah.
account
Oh
and
yeah.
posted
Yeah. Hmm.
of them on
Hmm.
the set of Bootylicious. So that's led everybody to think, oh, okay, so Beyonce's on the new album too. So, there's these little things that happen now that, gets people excited. And then her showing up at the Met
At the
Gala
Met Gala.
in that incredible, Stevie Nicks costume. I mean, I mean,
Right. It
it
was
was just like a bigger version of what she wears
Yes.
at every show. But it was spectacular, and it was the only thing you saw on social media for days after.
it
It was
was.
what everybody was talking about was her in that dress and that top hat, and she had the big boots back on and singing with Sabrina Carpenter. So it was just, it was a magic night for her, no matter what you thought of the Met Gala itself.
Well, and not only that, but you've got, Apple TV is producing that Fleetwood Mac documentary that's,
Right.
going to be so massive. And, I just had this thought because they just did the Beatles one not too long ago, and after when the Beatles did their box set and they all played on a John Lennon demo track, so there was that Freebird, so it was like the
Yeah.
first new Beatles track
Hmm.
since John Lennon had passed. And God, what if they could do something like that with a Christine McVie song that could accompany the documentary? So she's got plenty to keep her busy and do the
Tons.
damn Rhiannon movie.
Right.
Um,
Is there anything else about the anthology you guys would like to talk about that maybe we didn't touch on enough or
Mm,
Besides
I do.
buy
I do
it,
want to give a shout out to because I try to do it in every time. Is I do want to give a shout out to Donna Kyle, the photographer who took the photos on the front and back cover. She's been a fan of Stevie Nicks, one of she's close to that inner circle, and she's had incredible access to photograph Stevie for I think it's more than 40 years now that she's
yeah,
been following Stevie and photographing her, and so we just had this treasure trove of photos to choose from.
You'll note that we chose current Stevie,
yeah.
not Stevie from 30 or 40 years ago. We did
Yes,
not want young Stevie. We wanted now Stevie.
right.
I think
love
that
that?
was really smart, and I was really impressed with that because as much as and Anthony knows this because it's just been a pet peeve of mine, but there were two very significant events in Stevie's life in the last few years, and one was her box set of all of her solo work that came out, and I've got the vinyl back there. Every photo was a Rumors era photo for her solo work. And then when she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist, every image behind her while she was performing was from Rumors. And I was like, so thank you for acknowledging, current Stevie Nicks, who is
Yeah.
still
She's
out there
more
doing.
gorgeous now than she ever was.
I
Look
mean,
at the
she
hand on that front cover. That hand has so much wisdom in it. That is a spellcasting hand if I've ever seen one. That is a
yeah.
spellcasting hand.
Right,
Yeah,
You
she
right.
know?
had a serious, I don't know what it was. I mean, I think she's always been beautiful, but around the time of the dance in the late 90s and forward, she has
Hmm.
I mean, she has become even more beautiful to me. I just think she is stunning. And even now she's 78 now. She's still stunning and she sounds great.
Yep.
And the energy that she puts into the shows and giving the fans what they want, it really is just it's really spectacular to see.
It really is. Well, I want to thank you both for being on here. As Anthony's best friend, I want to thank you for having included him in the anthology as
Thank you
well.
very much.
It was our pleasure because it's great work. So
Yeah,
Oh,
he
thank
did
you.
that for himself, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. We didn't have anything to do with it. He submitted great work. We just recognized it.
As I said on the virtual event, Randy, we've known each other 30 some years, and he said, "You never write poetry anymore." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just too busy and I don't think about it." And then he saw the call and he sent me the email. He's like, "You should do it." And so I sat down and I wrote two poems. So
And he's continued to write since then. So I'm
yeah,
really
yeah,
proud of him.
you
Yeah.
guys have been a catalyst to kind of reignite something in me. And I
Right.
do it for myself for fun.
Yeah.
It helps me,
I
therapeutic.
love to hear that.
Yes. Well,
So thank you.
White Winged Doves, a Stevie Nicks poetry anthology by Madville Press, is available wherever fine books are sold, especially at the Barnes& and Noble in suburban Austin in the children's section.
Ah,
But seriously, you can get it wherever fine books are sold. Megan, Collin, thank you so much for being on the show.
thank you. Thanks for
Thanks
having
for
me.
having us. Yeah.
All right. And until next time,
See you all on the other side of the mirror.
well, all right, said Alice.